Okay, a lot of the previous modules we've been talking a lot about technique, about increasing your picking speed, working on your bringing your right and left hands together, your muting technique, learning the notes on the fretboard, left hand getting that really strong. So we've been doing a lot of technique work, and now we're going to do more application work and more work on actual playing and not actual playing, but actually more work on actually learning, what scales to use over what chords in arpeggio and how to take the notes and do things with them that sound musical, because that's what it's all about. Taking the notes and phrasing them in ways that are musical. So before we do get into that, I just want to go over a couple of improv and soloing concepts that are really, really important that you need to understand. The first thing is, whenever you're soloing or improving, you have two basic choices. One, you can solo over using the same thing over all the chords in a progression. Like if you have a bunch of chords in the key of D major, let's say, I don't know, let's just say D major, like a D major 7 to a B minor 7 to an E minor 7 to an A 7th, right? That's our progression. Now that's in the key of D major, okay? So you have two basic choices when you want to solo over that. You can solo over using the same scale or mode over every chord. No matter what chord it is, you're playing the same thing. For instance, this is in the key of D major. All those chords are made up of the notes in the D major scale. So you could use D major over all those chords, and it would sound okay. And that's fine. That's called D major relates to all. That's called what relates to all. You're playing D major over everything. Okay, so that's one option. Another option is you analyze the chords and you play over each chord. You treat each chord in the string like a separate event. And that gives you a much more sophisticated type of sound. That's more what I kind of lean towards. I try to pick each chord and play over each chord. So, for instance, over the D major 7 chord, I might play a D Lydian scale, because I like the way Lydian mode sounds over major 7th chords. Or maybe I'll play a D major 7th arpeggio. Or maybe I might play a D major scale. But I prefer the Lydian because that has that sharp 4 in it, and that's a pretty hit note. Then when it goes to B minor, I'm going to abandon all that, and I just look at the B minor chord. Or B minor 7th, actually. That's the second chord. So over that chord, maybe I'll play a B minor 7th arpeggio. Or maybe I'll play a B minor 9 arpeggio. Or maybe I'll play a B Aeolian scale, right? Aeolian mode. I'm playing just over the minor, the B minor. And there's so many, or I could play B minor pentatonic, right? And then it goes to E minor, 7th. I abandon the B minor and I hop to E minor, E minor 7th. So maybe I'll play an E minor 7th arpeggio. Or maybe I'll play E minor pentatonic. Or maybe I'll play a E Dorian, nice E Dorian mode. And then over the A 7th chord, I'll do something different. I'll treat that individually, and maybe I'll play like A mixed Lydian, because I like the way mixed Lydian sounds over 7th chords. It has that flat 7th in it. So that's kind of a nice flat 7. Play nice A mixed Lydian, or maybe I'll play an A 7th arpeggio, right? Or an A major arpeggio. So what I'm doing there is I'm treating each chord like a separate event, and that's going to give you a lot more sophisticated sound, and that's to get to the next level, what you want to do. However, that's a lot harder, because you got to kind of have one ear on what the band is doing, one ear on the chord changes you're going underneath, and one ear on what you're playing. So you got to listen for that chord change to come up. Okay, where's that chord change? Here it comes. I got to switch modes. Right? So you can't just be off doing your own thing while the band is playing and the drummer's like, oh, let's reel this guy in. What's he doing out there? Let's hook him and get him back in with the band. You got to know when the chords are changing so you can play over them. So you got to have an ear on that, an ear on what you're doing, and time it, because you don't want to get caught playing an A 7th arpeggio over an E minor 7th chord, or playing a B minor 9 over, an A7 or whatever. You want to make sure everything matches up. So remember, when you're soloing, we're going to spend time first, especially modally. You want to just play over the whole string to get the concepts of learning how to play in the modes down. Then we're going to start picking chords out, and you're going to start soloing over those independently. That's what you want to shoot for. what relates to all, treating each chord like a separate event. And one of the most important things I think when you're soloing is phrasing, how you're combining your licks, how you're building one lick into the next, into the next. That is critical. And we've been spending a lot of time in these modules talking about phrasing, connecting. I gave you some connection exercises and links. How you connect your scales and shapes and phrase them together is going to make or break you. And guys who do that really well really are going to really excel at the game of guitar playing, right? A guy with great phrasing like Stevie Ray Vaughan, his phrasing was, I think his phrasing was incredible. The music just kind of flowed out of him. And he just always seemed to be catching the right notes and phrasing his ideas together so well. And his connections were flawless. And guys do that really well. Joe Satriani, I like the way he phrases his things together. Carlos Santana, his phrasing I like too, even though he stays a lot in minor pentatonic and Dorian, he kind of plays the same licks a lot, but they're hip and they're cool and they're tasty. And he phrases them into the next tasty one. It's just one after the other. And he's great. So I really like the way he puts his ideas together. So you really want to work on how you're phrasing your ideas together. Phrasing is critical. The other thing that's so critical, I think, in your soloing is your rhythm. And I'm not talking about playing the rhythm of the... I'm not talking about that, or over that D major 7. I'm not talking about playing rhythm, I'm talking about the rhythm in your solo. How you are rhythmically locked in with the band or locked in with the progression. That's pretty critical. You have to have a really good vocabulary of rhythmic ideas and how you're playing your licks to sound hip. You just don't want to play everything straight with straight eighths or straight sixteenths or whatever. You want to put some rhythm to it. For instance, if you're playing like this triplet line in A Dorian or A minor pentatonic, adding the note. That's one way of playing it, but you want to put in like maybe a little rhythmic stop. Maybe then I'll turn that lick around and instead of starting it on the C, start it on the A. Or maybe start it on the B. So you see how you get all these different rhythmic ideas just from turning a lick around. I was playing 3 notes there. And I was playing just this G, the A, and the C, and a little bend. So you can get a lot out of it if you just kind of mess with the rhythm. So rhythmically, that's very, very important. You want to be able to look at your licks and see how you can turn them around. I showed you before in minor pentatonic how you can get a myriad of different sounds out of one little shape. And you want to practice that. So just don't learn these licks. Like, just don't just cop licks. I heard something a while ago where someone said, learn from the lick. And I think that has a lot of value. Just don't learn licks, because then you'll have a pocket of licks. Learn from the lick. Why does it sound good? What notes? What intervals? Why does that sound so good when I add that ninth? Right? How can I turn that and make it my own playing? How can I turn this lick into my own? So you just don't want to learn licks. You want to learn from them and make them your own and turn them around and play them rhythmically and play them with great... you don't want your playing to have the same kind of level all the time as far as attack and volume. You want your playing to be very up and down and loud and soft and big bends, and that's what makes it interesting, not this. All one kind of thing, and it just sounds too much like babble. You want your playing to have this great, uneven, like a craggedy cliff kind of. That's how you want your playing. Come in with big bends and then down, because what that is it's interesting. Remember, I think the two things, again, which are so important, what you're trying to do in a solo of a song, I think you're doing two things. One is obviously you want to complement the song. And two, you want to engage the listeners and draw them into your solo. Draw them into, or if you're jamming, you want to draw the people in. How do I do that? With good rhythm and melody, right? And playing these little tasty or hooky riffs that people kind of can gravitate toward. And like I was telling you before, you play something, you find the magic, and then you repeat it. Then you play off that motif. Then maybe you play something else, then come back to the motif, right? So people hear that. that melody that's the key to everything. So that's why songs have choruses that just keep repeating. Repeat the chorus, get to the chorus quick, get to the hook within the first 30 seconds, right? Because that's what people remember. Same thing when you're soloing. You have to give people something to sink their teeth into. They're not going to sink their teeth into this. Nothing to grab onto. Like, you want it up and down and left and right and take the listener on this audio trip journey, and that's what they do. So you want to engage people. Okay, and I like to move across the fretboard more than just staying in a box. Again, I can't say that enough. You don't want your playing to be very fragmented. You want it to flow and be phrased smooth. So I'm kind of planting some seeds here by going over this, but I think these concepts are critical. Concept of phrasing, the concept of rhythm in your solo, the concept of having this great ups and downs and turns and twists and engaging people, right? And playing each chord like it's a separate event, and that's what's going to get you to the next level, especially when we're playing modally. You want to change a different mode over each chord. Sounds really, really nice and sophisticated. So think about these things when you're soloing, and I'll see you in the next module.